Hello everyone. Welcome to the Nightmare and Horror channel. Imagine yourself waking up deep in the forest and not knowing where you are. There is a vehicle next to you and there is a burning fire in the middle. What would your reaction be? Let's subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Suddenly, Mark notices movement outside the tent. Shadows vanish quickly in the moonlight. They quickly extinguish the fire and start watching for movement outside. But nothing is visible. Soon after, a tall figure appears right next to the tent. The whole group watches in horror as they realize it's a creature trying to scare them, one with ancient traditions. But as this figure gets closer, they begin to feel that the jungle itself is transforming into something terrifying. Suddenly, a tree sound is heard. The trees begin to move as if they were monsters, their branches and leaves rustling loudly, surrounding them. Lily freezes for a moment. Her eyes lock with something, and from deep within the jungle, a calling voice echoes. An ancient worship area, hidden deep in the jungle, reveals itself. An ancient Amazon god's temple. According to the story, the jungle doesn't just conceal a horrifying past, it brings lost souls back to life. The mysterious figure begins to dance around them. James and his friends realize this being belongs to the spirit of a tribe slaughtered in the jungle during a violent massacre long ago. But this spirit does not want to let them go. As the shadows around the camp become more and more indistinct, suddenly, Sarah vanishes. All that remains is a bloodied trail and gigantic footprints. James and his friends venture deeper into the jungle to find Sarah, but they soon realize something is terribly wrong. They realize something is following them. The curse of the Amazon is forcing Sarah to be taken away. Mark, noticing the lost signals on his phone, tries to lead the group on the right path, but when he checks his phone, he sees that the entire jungle is filled with nightmarish visuals. The group, searching deeper into the jungle to find Sarah, realizes that every passing minute makes their journey more dangerous. As they move through the dark, the mystery of the jungle becomes more terrifying. James and Lily notice movement in the shadows, but everything vanishes suddenly. Mark, still looking at his phone, sees strange, corrupted images. Something is definitely wrong. Later in the night, the members of the group begin to panic and drift apart, leaving them even more isolated. They come together once more to search for Sarah, but the tension in the air grows thicker with every step. Everything in the jungle feels alive, its presence growing stronger with every movement. Suddenly, a strange calling voice rises again, but this time, it's much closer and sharper. Lily and James, summoning all their courage, speed up their steps, but they soon realize that the voice is coming straight toward them. A figure is watching them. As the group ventures deeper into the jungle, a massive silhouette slowly emerges. This creature might be the guardian of an ancient Amazon god's temple. Its eyes glow with a golden yellow light, and the trees around it seem to tremble in its presence. The creature is said to collect the lost souls of the jungle, trapping them forever in its depths. When James first sees the creature, he is paralyzed with terror. The creature moves slowly but steadily, and every motion seems more dangerous. The group begins to run, but each of them is blocked from escaping. The trees appear to grow and bend in an attempt to keep them from leaving. In a moment of panic, James discovers a hidden passage. But before he can enter, he hears Lily's screams. Lily has disappeared. In the dark, the group members lose communication with each other. Mark, still hoping to find Sarah, walks on, but with every step, he gets the unsettling feeling that something is following him. Sarah's tracks have disappeared deeper into the jungle, leaving behind only giant footprints and broken branches. The sounds of the jungle feel like they are watching their deaths unfold. James rushes back to the spot where Lily disappeared, but there is nothing left. Just a deep, unnatural silence and a cold wind. James feels something is wrong, and his instincts whisper that the jungle is changing. The strange voices and the shifting shadows tell him that this place is no longer the same. As the night drags on, Mark's senses become increasingly distorted. The jungle, once a place of natural beauty, now feels like an endless labyrinth of shadows and unseen threats. His breathing is shallow, and his eyes dart around, trying to catch any glimpse of movement, but the forest around him is deathly still. The wind has died down, and the usual sounds of animals and insects have completely disappeared. It's as if the jungle itself has fallen silent, holding its breath in anticipation. Mark's legs feel like lead as he stumbles through the thick underbrush. His feet slip on the slick, moss-covered ground, and he has to grab onto a nearby tree to steady himself. He takes a moment to calm his racing thoughts, but the stillness of the jungle is maddening. There's something unnatural about it all, something in the air that presses against his chest, making it harder to breathe. The whispers in the distance return, but they are louder now, more distinct, and they seem to be coming from everywhere at once. The jungle is alive with voices, voices he doesn't recognize, but they sound so familiar, almost like the voices of his friends. With renewed urgency, Mark continues his search. His heart pounds in his chest as he realizes that he's been walking for hours, yet there is no sign of Sarah, Lily, or James. The forest seems to stretch out endlessly before him, and every path he takes leads him in circles. His mind races, trying to piece together where he's gone wrong. But the jungle is playing tricks on him, its twisted paths leading him deeper into the heart of the darkness. The temperature drops suddenly, and Mark pulls his jacket tighter around himself. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. He feels the weight of the jungle closing in on him, and with each passing minute, he becomes more aware of how alone he truly is. He tries calling out for his friends, but the only sound that returns is his own voice, echoing back at him in a distorted, mocking way. The jungle is answering back, but it isn't offering any comfort. Every shadow feels alive, every rustling of leaves feels like a warning. He begins to feel as though the trees are watching him, their gnarled limbs twisting and creaking in response to his movements. Mark's thoughts are spiraling. He knows he's losing his grip on reality. Is he really alone, or has the jungle begun to take his mind too? Then, just as he begins to question his sanity, he sees something in the distance, a flicker of movement. It's quick, but unmistakable. A figure. His heart skips a beat as he runs toward it, calling out, hoping that it's one of his friends. But when he reaches the spot where he saw the figure, he finds only a barren clearing, devoid of life. His breath comes in ragged gasps as he scans the area, but there's nothing but the emptiness of the jungle. He stands there for a long moment, frozen in place, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. The jungle seems to have grown darker, and he realizes with a jolt that he's no longer sure where he is. The trees look different now, the branches twisted into grotesque shapes that seem to loom over him like silent sentinels. The air is thick with an oppressive weight, and Mark can feel his sanity slipping away. Mark turns around, deciding to head back in the direction he came, but as he does, he notices something that stops him dead in his tracks, a shadow moving between the trees, too large to be an animal. His heart begins to race as he tries to make out what it is, but the shadows shift too quickly. It moves silently, gliding through the jungle with an unnatural fluidity. It's something that shouldn't exist in the natural world. He can feel its gaze on him, cold and unrelenting, even though he can't see its face. The air grows colder still, and Mark shivers involuntarily. He knows that he's no longer just lost in the jungle, he's being hunted. His legs tremble as he tries to move faster, but the dense underbrush slows him down. The rustling in the trees grows louder, and the whispers return, but this time they are more insistent, as if the jungle itself is calling out to him, beckoning him into its dark depths. Suddenly, the ground beneath him gives way, and he stumbles, falling to his knees. He looks down to see a deep pit, concealed by overgrown plants, and barely manages to catch himself before he tumbles into it. His heart races, and for a moment, he wonders if this is it, if the jungle has finally claimed him. But before he can recover, a voice calls out from behind him, low and raspy. "Mark." He freezes, his blood running cold. The voice is unmistakably Sarah's, but it's wrong, distorted, distant, as if coming from beneath the earth itself. "Mark, help me." His hands tremble as he turns around, but there is no one there, just the emptiness of the jungle. The whispering grows louder, as though the very trees are speaking his name, calling him to join them. Mark stumbles backward, his mind racing, his thoughts a jumbled mess. He can't trust what he's hearing, what he's seeing. The jungle is alive, and it's playing with him, toying with his very sense of reality. The jungle has become an entity unto itself, a living, breathing nightmare that feeds on his fear. His vision starts to blur, and he falls to his knees, gasping for air. His chest tightens as he tries to make sense of what's happening. He can feel his mind unraveling, the weight of the jungle pressing in from all sides. The shadows close in around him, and he feels as though he's being pulled deeper into the earth. Then, in the distance, he hears another scream, but this time, it's not Sarah or Lily. It's a voice he doesn't recognize, and it's filled with agony. He scrambles to his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he runs toward the source of the sound. But as he gets closer, the scream stops abruptly, replaced by a deathly silence. Mark reaches the clearing, his heart pounding, only to find a skeleton lying in the dirt, its hollow eyes staring up at the sky. A warning. And just as Mark bends down to inspect it, he feels the presence behind him. Slowly, he turns around to see a shadow, tall, dark, and unnaturally still, looming just behind him. The jungle is no longer a place of adventure. It is a place of predation. The jungle itself has become his enemy. He screams as the shadow reaches out toward him, but the only sound that follows is the rustling of the leaves as the jungle swallows him whole. Mark stumbles backward, his mind racing, his thoughts a jumbled mess. He can't trust what he's hearing, what he's seeing. The jungle is alive, and it's playing with him, toying with his very sense of reality. The jungle has become an entity unto itself, a living, breathing nightmare that feeds on his fear. His vision starts to blur, and he falls to his knees, gasping for air. His chest tightens as he tries to make sense of what's happening. He can feel his mind unraveling, the weight of the jungle pressing in from all sides. The shadows close in around him, and he feels as though he's being pulled deeper into the earth. Then, in the distance, he hears another scream, but this time, it's not Sarah or Lily. It's a voice he doesn't recognize, and it's filled with agony. He scrambles to his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he runs toward the source of the sound. But as he gets closer, the scream stops abruptly, replaced by a deathly silence. Mark reaches the clearing, his heart pounding, only to find a skeleton lying in the dirt, its hollow eyes staring up at the sky. A warning. And just as Mark bends down to inspect it, he feels the presence behind him. Slowly, he turns around to see a shadow, tall, dark, and unnaturally still, looming just behind him. The jungle is no longer a place of adventure. It is a place of predation. The jungle itself has become his enemy. He screams as the shadow reaches out toward him, but the only sound that follows is the rustling of the leaves as the jungle swallows him whole. In this further extension, Mark's descent into madness becomes more palpable. His mind is unraveling as he is continuously taunted by the jungle, with every shadow and whisper serving to deepen his confusion and terror.